I spent 9 months tracking fraudulent job listings for a state university, and in that time, I saw almost 10,000 scam job attempts targeting young adults and teenagers. Now, most of those scams fell into 8 different categories, so today I'm going to talk about what those scams are, why they were successful to begin with, and what you can do in order to protect yourself on the job search. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe if you are new, and let's get into it. So phishing scams are a type of cyber attack that tries to funnel information or money out of a person or organization. Most phishing scams that you've seen have probably been over email. You know, those messages that say, "Congratulations, you've won a new iPhone. Give us your address and your credit card information and we'll ship that right over to you." See, those are the basic ones that most old people fall for, but phishing scams have become increasingly more sophisticated in the past few years. In fact, a lot of them will try to now mimic other people in order to get that money or information out of a company. So what a scammer will do is they will look through the directory of a company, find out who the supervisors are and who the people are that work underneath them. Then they will spoof that person's email address and send the message to their employees saying, "Hey, this is urgent. I need you to use the company card to buy $500 worth of gift cards. Send those links over to me, and then I'm going to use that money in order to host some event for the company here today." And then every single person who falls for that scam ends up funneling $500 out of the company and into the scammer's pocket. And so phishing scams don't just happen at companies, they also happen in job listings. So for example, the company could ask you to apply on Amazon.com, but the O is actually a 0. Or they might tell you to send your resume and your information to Amazon@gmail.com. Stuff like this happens all the time. Now, the big things to look out for to protect yourself from phishing scams are 1, those mismatching URLs or spoof email addresses, poor grammar and spelling, just because most scam attempts are coming from outside of the United States and are probably not by native English speakers. Unexpected solicitation is another red flag. This is just whenever you're randomly asked for money for seemingly no reason. And then any urgent or threatening language from a bureaucratic organization should probably be a red flag as well. Next up are labor law violations. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, mostly because they're pretty self-explanatory. The most common labor law violations that you see are typically companies either paying less than minimum wage or trying to actively discriminate against some type of candidate. However, where I've seen the most companies get away with breaking law violations are through, quote, unpaid internships. Now, the US Division of Labor has a 7-part primary beneficiary test, say that 5 times fast, for determining whether or not an unpaid internship is legal. I'll be sure to link that down in the description, but you can also pause on it right here. Now, I would personally never recommend that somebody do any type of unpaid internship. If you want some type of unpaid experience, then you can join a club, you can volunteer, or you can do some personal project that relates to your career goals. Don't go work for a company and not make any money. Now, most of the illegal unpaid internships that I saw were, ironically enough, from startups. You would get some douchebag entrepreneur who would have the bright idea of thinking, "Hey, what if I entirely staff my company with unpaid interns?" And then everyone from the marketer to the social media person to the graphic designer to the salespeople, all of them would be unpaid, while the only person profiting from that company's operations was the business owner. This is super illegal, but it's really hard to track this type of thing when you are brought on as an unpaid intern and the company never actually puts you on their books. So keep yourself safe and just don't do unpaid internships at all. But if for whatever reason you absolutely have to do some type of unpaid opportunity, at the very least make sure that it's in line with the US Division of Labor standards. Okay, so work visa abuse happens to both immigrants here in the United States, as well as to Americans who are trying to find work abroad. So I'm going to talk about both of those in this section. This is when somebody uses the fact that you need a visa in order to scam you. For example, a scammer might target a college in the United States and say, hey, we need native Hindi speakers to do this remote IT consulting job over the summer because we have a lot of clients in India. Whether or not this is true notwithstanding, this is going to attract the attention of a lot of international students from India who are uniquely qualified for this type of job. And then they're going to send their resume and information over to this person, oftentimes because they aren't used to what American bureaucracy looks like, and they don't necessarily know what to expect when finding a job. And then the bad actor will do one of two different things. One, they might severely underpay this worker and basically threaten to fire them and take away their visa if they don't accept being underpaid. Or they might use that person's information that they sent over to scam them via a phishing scheme. There are a few things that you as an international student can look out for if you're trying to avoid this. First and foremost, just be extremely weary of any company that asks for a language requirement when there's no good reason for them to do so. Okay, it should be suspicious if some random startup in Oklahoma City is targeting the local college for native Mandarin speakers. Might be legit, but it does raise some red flags. Also, be initially cautious of companies that are based out of New Jersey or Delaware. Those two states have uniquely lax laws for filing an LLC as a foreign entity, and so there are plenty of bad actors out of Russia, China, and India who will try to target and scam their fellow citizens who decided to work or go to school in the United States by getting a fake LLC through New Jersey or Delaware. This happens literally every single day. Also, super quick disclaimer that I am not an immigration lawyer. Any and all questions and legal concerns that you have about your work visa situation should be directed to somebody who is legally qualified to help you. That is not me. I am some random dude on YouTube who's just talking about his personal experience, analyzing and seeing scam job listings. But let's say that you are an American trying to get a job abroad. I saw a lot of scam listings that were looking for English teachers specifically, oftentimes out of East Asia. And what would happen was that somebody would apply to this sketchy opportunity, and then they would fly to South Korea thinking that there was a job waiting for them, only to find that there was no money, no company, and absolutely no job waiting for them when they got to the country. This happens more often than you would think. I would be extremely cautious of doing any job abroad that isn't through some type of government or organization with name recognition. You know, if the Chinese government is hiring English teachers, probably legit. If Toyota is hiring mechanical engineers for an internship in Tokyo, it's probably legitimate. But be weary of everybody else. There is very little that the United States can do to protect you or bring you back home if you fall for one of these foreign work visa scams. So protect yourself, make sure that anything that you apply to is legitimate. Okay, now this is more a category of scams than necessarily one type of scam, but I do want to talk about this. Lots of scammers will try to trick you by posing as an anonymous employer. This is when they won't disclose the name of the company or the location of the job until after you've applied. You know, the listing might say something like, now hiring electrical engineers for a big project in Kentucky. Okay, it's going to be vague enough to not give any information, but specific enough that people will still apply to the job. You see this a lot with especially uncommon work situations. I actually had a friend of mine who ended up taking on a vague anonymous job looking for art interns in rural Montana. He ended up going for the summer and working with this super sketchy operation out in the middle of nowhere. And then as time went on and the entire summer passed, he ended up not getting paid for any of the work that he did with this company. And because there was no paper trail officially tied to him as an unpaid worker at an unnamed organization, he ended up having over a year of legal battles before he could get any type of retribution for doing this work. It was absolutely terrible, but is honestly just a testament to the fact that you should never, ever, ever, ever give your information to any organization that refuses to give their information to you first. And also, always have job agreements in writing. Alright, so now we're getting into the juicy scams. Pyramid schemes are interesting because they fall into this sort of gray area of legality and ethics. So let's start with a simple definition first. A pyramid scheme is a type of sales model where salespeople primarily earn money from referring new people onto a sales team. Statistically, most men fall victim to this through summer sales, while most women fall victim to this through multi-level marketing schemes or MLMs. So let's say that a company approaches you about selling shovels. Everybody needs a shovel, especially in your community where most people are avid gardeners. And these are the best damn shovels in the world, so it's gonna be super easy for you to sell them to your neighbors. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna buy 100 shovels off of us for $5 a piece. Then you're gonna go around to your neighbors and you're gonna sell those shovels to them for $15, making you a considerable profit. But wait, there's more. We will also give you a commission anytime you convince one of your friends to come and buy 100 shovels from us as well. And in fact, we will give you a $300 commission anytime you do that, meaning you only need to refer 2 friends in order to pay off your initial investment in our 100 shovels. And so everything else that you sell from there is pure profit, baby. And you see where this is going. Pyramid schemes are versions of MLMs or commission-based sales opportunities where the salespeople themselves are actually the primary client of the company's product. You give one of your salespeople $300 every time they convince one of their friends to give you $500, and you then make a $200 profit off of them. It's a never-ending cycle and one that has destroyed a lot of people's personal relationships and finances, especially as it becomes more and more difficult to 1, sell those shovels, and 2, down the road, find people who aren't also selling shovels in your area. And admittedly, these types of scams can be really hard to avoid because oftentimes the people who are dragging us into them are our friends and loved ones. But there are a few things that you can look out for if you see this type of scam getting advertised. Any type of commission-only sales, any situation where you have to buy the product first, or any type of position where you have to refer a friend as part of the job is 100% best avoided. It could potentially be legitimate, but you are probably going to be better off anyway just finding a sales job that gives you a base hourly rate before any type of commission kicks in. Which leads us nicely into the next set of scams, because those same rules that apply to pyramid schemes also apply to most affiliate marketers and brand ambassadors that you know of are probably hashtag influencers. A company approaches a YouTuber to advertise their product, and then that YouTuber gets a kickback anytime that one of their viewers goes in and purchases that product from their link. Most of the time, this is perfectly ethical and legitimate, so long as people are being transparent around the fact that advertising is happening. Where we run into scam territory is when random people off the street are found to try and market these sketchier products through social media. So for example, a company will try and hire a remote ambassador to go through different social media pages and spam the comment section with links advertising their good or service. Those ambassadors are almost always commission only, which again is a red flag like we talked about earlier, and they aren't formally employed by the company, meaning again that there is no established paper trail to protect them and make sure that they're earning minimum wage. This is actually a really big problem for both business schools and art schools across America, because a lot of these companies will advertise those types of positions as marketing internships or, sales internships, when really they're just operating outside of the confines of the law. There has been a massive uptick in these too, as remote work has become increasingly more desirable and accessible to a broader portion of the workforce. All of the other advice that I've said before still applies to these types of scams, but I'm also going to give you just a bit of old-timey money wisdom here and say that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Now, this is the scary one. So I want us for a minute to just set aside all of the weird politicizing around human trafficking lately and just let me give it to you straight. There are people out there who post job listings because they want to kidnap, sexually abuse, and sometimes kill young adults and teenagers. There just are. I've seen these scams, they exist, and I even know of situations where they were successful. It's not a joke, and you need to be aware of how to protect yourself from these types of scams. So I would be on the lookout for these 3 things. First and foremost, watch out for jobs that say that only women should apply. There are very, 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 very few situations where it is ever okay to discriminate against a candidate based off of gender. And all of the exceptions to that are usually excruciatingly obvious. Like if, a women's shelter is trying to hire therapists to work for them. Like it's obvious why they would only be targeting women. But if the coffee shop down the street is trying to do that, then you should avoid that place like the plague and probably notify the authorities. Second, be suspicious of any organization looking for freelance models or actors. Modeling agencies exist for a reason, and they are there to function as the intermediary between the broader industry and the models that are being hired. If you want to be a model, if you want to be an actor, if you want to use your appearance for work, then at least get yourself signed through an agency first. And third, and probably the most important thing to look out for, is never, ever, ever go to a job interview at somebody's house or at a non-related secondary location. It's one thing if they ask you to interview at like the Starbucks next to the company, that's whatever. But if somebody invites you to your house, or heaven forbid they invite you to some undisclosed warehouse on the outskirts of town, absolutely do not go and do that. People fall for these things all the time, and they wreck or even sometimes end people's lives. It is not a joke, and you need to be aware of this so that you can protect yourself on the job search. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, just make sure that you're watching out for yourself out there. There are people who might try to take advantage of your desperation, and you need to make sure that you are being safe when you're looking for a job. That way you can not only survive, but also thrive in ethical, well-paying opportunities. I make videos on job market topics almost every single week, so please be sure to subscribe and like this video if you would like more down the road, and I will see you in the next one.